And we're talking about that man because in the NBA, we are now 1 week away from the deadline for Kyrie Irving to opt into the last year of his deal with the Brooklyn Nets. I want to make sure everyone is clear on just how significant this decision is, not just for this franchise, but for the entire league. Kyrie has two options. He can opt into the final year of this contract. That would be $36.5 million. Or, as Bobby Marks is about to tell us, and Tim Legler gets up with us as well, if he opts out, we're talking about a week from today, he becomes an unrestricted free agent, right?
Yeah, free market. He can go sign with, any of the, 29 other teams besides Brooklyn. The advantage is, though, for Brooklyn, he has bird rights. They can bring him back, exceed the cap. There's not much, limited cap space out there.
Right.
Unless he wants to, of course, go and take that $30 million pay cut. But, yeah, he's not restricted. The Nets don't have the right to match on anything. He will be an unrestricted free agent.
So the point is that at least for the following week, Kyrie Irving really has all of the leverage in all of this. He dictates what happens for the next week. The Nets have no control over whether he opts in or opts out. Now, once he opts out, if he chooses to go that way, it gets a little interesting. So, Tim Legler, let's start with that. I think most people do most people seem to think he will opt in at the end of the day, that he will opt into the final year of this contract?
I don't think he will, because when you look at it, he has reached 10 years of service. So that next contract is a $6 million bump. So he would go from $36 million to $42.7. So I think he's looking at it from, hey, I can get a $6 million increase in salary by basically opting out of his contract. Now, the danger is, where is that $42 million contract going to come from if it's not Brooklyn?
That's the point. And if Brooklyn isn't willing to do it. So, Tim, that perfectly sets up the question I wanted to ask you. Should someone, Brooklyn or someone else, be knocking itself out to give Kyrie Irving a max extension?
Well, the talent dictates that he'll get that kind of money, but I'll tell you what, I wouldn't sleep very well at night if I was a front office and I gave Kyrie Irving that kind of financial security. You got to think, this is a guy that has been unavailable for more games than he has been available since he got to Brooklyn 3 years ago. I think at some point, guys, talent shouldn't be enough. We know the talent is there. I get tired actually of talking about Kyrie Irving's talent, because every time we say something and we talk about all of the things that he's been through, and there's some baggage there, we always say, but he's so talented. Yeah, we know that. But is that enough? You have to be reliable. You got to be somebody you can count on, not just in the regular season. You got to be somebody that's going to be there when we need you most, and also show some leadership ability. And then the final component to me is Kyrie Irving himself has said repeatedly, this isn't the end of the world to him. Basketball's not everything. Is that a guy that goes home and doesn't sleep after losses? And when you start talking about these kind of contracts, I think that should be something that comes with it. You want those highly driven guys that would kill themselves to win. And I don't know that Kyrie Irving falls into that category.
I think you're exactly right. And sometimes things that make people well-balanced human beings are not the things that makes them all-time great basketball players. So I agree with what you were saying. Bobby, let me ask the question to you a little bit of a different way, because I keep hearing people say to me, well, the Nets should sign him to the max extension, but they should put in this provision and that provision. He has to play this many games. He has to do this much and that much. They did it with Joel Embiid once upon a time in Philly. Are those things realistic? Could that be one of the ways this thing gets done?
It should be on the table. I mean, I've got the contract right here.
Okay.
4 years, $192 million max contract. First 2 years are guaranteed. Years 3 and 4 are not guaranteed, but tied into if he plays 65 games. All he has to do is show up, play games. 65 games this year and 65 games next year. Those last 2 years, which is $49 million and $53 million, become fully guaranteed. That's all Brooklyn is asking him to do. I'm not giving him a blank check of $50 million in that last year based on what's occurred over the last 3 years.
Can we make that deal, Tim? If you're representing Kyrie Irving, are you taking that? Does that deal work for you from both sides?
I mean, I don't think that, unfortunately, I think that's a phenomenal offer. I think that totally makes sense. I think there should be stipulations to protect the team to a certain extent. I think they've earned that based on the last 3 years. But I just know that players today of his caliber, they don't go for that. They want it all guaranteed. When they become eligible for Supermax and he feels like he's a Supermax talent, they want all that money. They don't want stipulations. But I think Bobby's 100% right. That is the only smart way to approach this if you're the Brooklyn Nets, to protect yourself, at least to a certain extent. And that's, by the way, 65 games out of 82 is not exactly killing yourself. You're still going to get plenty of nights off if you want those, and the team decides you want those. So I think that's a very smart way to structure the deal.
Will give him the respect, that he probably deserves. And that's just the way it is. And like I say, the game hasn't changed. Kobe said it. LeBron said it. And so we're going to hold him to the same high standard.
Whether he won a championship or not with the Warriors, how he did it, he drove the bus. He talks about driving a bus, right? Like, maybe it wasn't his bus, but he took the keys and he drove it. And he was the best player on that team.
Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max. Brought to you by Capital One with no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees. Banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. That's banking reimagined. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One N.A., member FDIC. And joining us now, our old friend, ESPN NBA senior writer. It's Dr. Dre, y'all. Andre Snellings. What's up, Dre?
What up, Dre?
Good morning, fellas.
Oh, you up
get
today?
Up early to hang with you guys.
Yeah, you up today though.
The good doctor is in the
house.
Yeah.
So caffeine in my system.
Ooh, let's go. Let's get it.
Dre, does Kevin Durant need to win a title without the Warriors? Not a 73-win team. He just joins ready-made. Let's go. We already know he can ball. To prove he is in the highest echelon of all-time greats, the answer is yes. But what do you say?
The answer is definitely yes for barbershop conversations and for this conversation. I personally am not a ring counter. I don't look at rings and say, oh, this changes how I think this player performed. I thought Durant was the same player in Oklahoma City as he was in Golden State, as he is in Brooklyn. I'm confident that I can see and I can evaluate what he is. But for these conversations and for the conversations he wants to have and the narrative he wants to have for his career, yeah, especially after the Warriors won this season, people are going to look at KD differently unless and until he shows he can do it without the Warriors team.
Snell, let me ask you this, man, because I was talking to Max and Jay the other day, and you know, I'm a basketball fan, and I'm looking at the Warriors get their fourth chip, and I'm saying to myself, they done found this Andrew Wiggins kid. He's not Kevin Durant. He's number one overall pick, not Kevin Durant or whatever. And I'm looking at it, and I'm saying to myself, man, I wonder if the Warriors would have won in 17 and 18 if they had a Wiggins type instead of a Kevin Durant with everything that they already had. Will they have
the fence is 300 feet away. A home run, you can hit a 350-foot home run. You don't need to hit it 500 feet to hit a home run.
Dre. What you think, Snell? Dre, go ahead, Dre.
I can hear the pain in Jay's voice. Here's the thing. This Warriors team, you know, pre-Durant, with Durant, after Durant, it was great. Durant's an outstanding player, and the fact that we're even talking about him anywhere near the top 10 in NBA history should show that. But if you break it down just looking at the analytics, I'm a nerd. I do that. It was clear who the most important player on the Warriors, especially for the offense, was during this entire era. And it was not Kevin Durant. Even when he got to Golden State, if you look at the impact stats, which I like to look at, you know, ESPN has one real plus minus. The top player in the NBA in 2016 and 17, which was the year before and the year of Durant, was Steph Curry. You know, Kevin Durant has only been in the top 5 in real plus minus 3 times in his entire career, you know, and that's including every stop he's made, because he's an excellent finisher. He might be the greatest scorer that this game has ever seen. But when it comes to changing the way his offense and or his defense performs, he doesn't have the same level of impact on his team's offense that Steph Curry does. Because Steph Curry is not just scoring and you know, putting up points. He's changing the way opposing defenses have to guard their whole team. So even if KD gets 30 and Steph gets 25. The way that the defense defends the Warriors is much more predicated on Curry's presence than it was on KD's. So, yes, possibly if you had an Andrew Wiggins-type performer in that place. I mean, in 2015 and 16, you did with Harrison Barnes, who wasn't even, to Andrew Wiggins' level. So, yes, you can make a strong case that if you had this year's Wiggins in 17 and 18, they have a good chance to win those seasons too.
This is the first year Wiggins has been an all-star in his career. He's had a phenomenal year. This has not been like the Wiggins the entire time he's been with the Warriors, first off. Secondly, KD, in those 2 years that they won chips, averaged 25 and 26 in the regular season, a couple of percentage points off 50, 40, 90 each season. So I agree with your point that the offense is predicated around Stephen Curry, built around the continuity of the offensive system. And I'm not diminishing Stephen Curry's importance to the team, but I'm also not diminishing how great of a player Kevin Durant was for them those 2 seasons and how he elevated his performances. Even those numbers go up massively during the playoff performances.